Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take topics you're curious about, look at the sources you send us, and really dig in.
Yeah, kind of get straight to the heart of it, find the surprising connections.
Exactly, your shortcut to understanding, maybe with a few aha moments.
And today, it's fascinating. We're looking at ancient Buddhist texts. A listener pointed us towards them.
Right, specifically about a monk. Beḷaṭṭhasīsa, is that how you say it?
Beḷaṭṭhasīsa,
Yeah.
yes. And the texts discuss his practices and, importantly, how the Buddha responded.
And our listener, like probably a lot of you, wants to get that knowledge efficiently, thoroughly, but without wading through everything.
Makes sense. So that's our goal here. Uncover the wisdom in this old story. Find the principles, see what sticks.
Okay, let's get into it. Our mission. Understand Beḻaṭṭhasīsa, his actions, and what the Buddha's teaching really meant.
Let's do it.
So first off, who was this monk, Beḻaṭṭhasīsa?
Well, the texts describe him as a respected monk. He was living in the Jetavana monastery.
Jetavana. That was a major center, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A very significant place. And Beḻaṭṭhasīsa, he had this unusual practice. After his normal alms round, where he'd collect food and eat his meal, he'd actually go out again.
Again, why?
To collect more food, dry food specifically, and he'd store it back at the monastery.
Okay, storing food, that sounds potentially problematic in a monastic setting. What was his reasoning?
Well, the texts suggest he found the whole process, the daily search for alms, to be a kind of suffering, a distraction maybe.
I can sort of see that. The constant need.
Right. So his idea was if he stored up enough for a few days, he could skip the alms round and spend that time meditating, in meditative bliss, as the text put it.
So the intention wasn't greed, it was freeing up time for practice.
That seems to be the interpretation, yes. Detachment from the daily grind, in a way, to focus inward.
Interesting take. But how did that go down with the other monks? Doesn't sound like standard procedure?
No, it wasn't, and they became critical. Quite critical.
They saw it as what? Hoarding.
Pretty much. Accumulation. Maybe going against the ideal of relying on daily generosity, detachment from possessions.
So naturally they took it higher up.
They did. They reported it to the Buddha.
Okay, now we get to the core of it. The Buddha's response. Did he just tell him off? Say, stop storing food?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The Buddha's response was quite nuanced.
How so?
Firstly, the texts point out Beḷaṭṭhasa hadn't actually broken a specific rule. Not yet, anyway.
Ah, okay. No explicit rule against storing a little bit, perhaps.
Possibly. And crucially, his motive wasn't seen as inherently bad. It came from this desire for detachment, remember? From the perceived burden of the alms round.
All right, the motivation mattered.
Exactly. So instead of a direct reprimand, the Buddha used it. It became a teachable moment.
A teachable moment. Love that. About what, specifically?
About the whole principle of attachment, accumulation, and liberation itself. He recited a verse.
Oh, okay. Can you share that?
Sure. In the original Pali, it goes, Yasas sanikayanati, yaparinyanta pujana, sunyanato animito fanimokoya vimokoya sakokaro, akasvasa kuntanangati tisaturamvaya.
Wow. That sounds profound. What's the English meaning? Can you break it down?
Of course. It translates roughly to, for whom there is no accumulation, whose food is well understood, whose realm is liberation empty, signless, and unconditioned, their path is as hard to trace as that of birds in the sky.
Okay, lots to unpack there. Let's start with Sanikaya accumulation. What does no accumulation really mean here?
Good question. The commentaries explain two types. First, Kama Sanikaya. That's accumulating karma, actions, good or bad.
Okay, the weight of our actions.
Right. And second, Pakaya Sanikaya. That's accumulating the requisites, the basic needs. Food, robes, lodging, medicine.
So the Buddha's talking about letting go of both karmic baggage and material hoarding.
Precisely. It's a dual letting go.
So back to Beḻaṭṭhasīsa. Was his little stash of food considered as problematic Pakaya Sanikaya? Because that's what the other monks seem to think.
But here's the nuance again. According to the understanding then, storing a very small amount wasn't classified as Pakaya Sanikaya.
Really? Like how small?
The texts give examples, actually. Like, a quarter portion of a sweetmeat, a bit of ghee, a measure of rice. Really small amounts.
So technically, Beḻaṭṭhasīsa might have been okay on that specific point.
He might have been. Storing more than that certainly would have been an issue. But the Buddha's teaching wasn't just about that specific quantity. It was using the situation to talk about the whole mindset of accumulation, the tendency itself.
Got it. It's the underlying principle, not just the letter of the law in this one case. Okay, the verse also mentions Pariññattabhojana, food that is well understood. That sounds simple, but I bet it's not. How do you understand food in this context?
You're right, there are layers. 3 levels, actually, are described.
Okay, level 1.
Yattapariñña. That's just knowing what it is. Recognizing it. This is porridge, this is bread. Simple identification.
Okay, basic. What's level 2?
Tunakariñña. This is deeper. It's understanding food with wisdom, but also with a sense of revulsion almost.
Revulsion towards food.
Not disgust exactly, but recognizing its nature. Its impermanent fuel for an impermanent body. Understanding its connection to decay, its transformation within the body. It counters the purely sensual pleasure aspect.
Seeing it just as fuel, basically, stripping away the enjoyment factor, or at least putting it in perspective.
Exactly, seeing its purpose clearly, beyond just taste or desire.
And the third level?
Bhajanapariñña. This is the wisdom that actually removes the desire and attachment related to food and eating.
Ah, so it actively diminishes craving.
Yes, you eat purely for sustenance, to maintain the body for spiritual practice, without clinging, without making it a source of identity or major pleasure. Eating to live, not the other way around.
Recognition, understanding its nature, and then actively letting go of attachment. That's quite a journey regarding something as basic as food.
It is. It reframes a fundamental activity.
Now, the verse also mentions liberation, vimokko, being empty and signless. And you mentioned unconditioned is tied in there too. This sounds like nibbana nirvana.
That's exactly what it's pointing to. These terms, suññato, empty, animito, signless, and apatito, unconditioned or undirected, describe facets of nibbana.
Can you elaborate slightly? Empty of what? Signless how?
Suññata vimokko, empty liberation, means it's empty of craving, aversion, and delusion, and liberated from them.
Okay.
Animito vimokko, signless liberation, means it's without the signs or features that arise from craving, aversion, delusion. It's beyond those conventional markers, and again, liberated from them.
And apanchito, unconditioned.
Yes, apanchito vimokko means free from the inclinations, the leanings, the desires rooted in those same defilements. No longing, no striving based on craving.
So these three together paint a picture of ultimate freedom from the things that normally bind us.
A very complete picture. And this state, this threefold liberation, is called the gokaro, the realm, the scope, the pasture of these people the verse describes.
Their realm, meaning that's where their mind dwells, that's their focus.
That's their sphere of operation, yes.
Yeah.
They abide with that attainment as their primary objective and experience.
Which brings us to the end of the verse. Gāthā duranvaya. Their path, or maybe their going, is hard to trace, like birds in the sky. Beautiful image. What's the deep meaning there?
It's a powerful analogy. Birds fly, they move through the sky, but they leave no mark, no trail, no footprint.
Right. Untraceable.
So for those individuals who have no dual accumulation, remember, karmic and material, and whose food is understood in those 3 ways we discussed.
Yes.
And whose focus, whose realm, is that empty, signless, unconditioned liberation.
Their path is like the birds.
Exactly. Their movement through samsara, through the cycle of existence. The texts list things like the 5 aggregates, the different realms, modes of birth, states of consciousness, that movement can't be pinned down, it can't be tracked or known in the usual way.
Why not? Because they're not creating the usual causes and effects, not leaving those karmic traces.
Precisely. Their detachment means their journey doesn't leave the kind of karmic residue that makes ordinary beings' paths predictable or traceable. They move without leaving footprints in the conditioned world. It signifies profound freedom.
Wow. From storing a bit of food to the untraceable path of the enlightened. That's quite the teaching leap.
It really shows how the Buddha could use everyday situations to illustrate the most profound aspects of the path.
And did this teaching have an impact on those listening?
Oh, absolutely. The text mentioned that at the end of this discourse, many in the audience attained significant spiritual insights. Some even reached stream entry.
Stream entry. That's the first stage of irreversible enlightenment, right?
That's right, a major step. So the teaching clearly resonated deeply.
So let's try and synthesize this. We started with Beḷaṭṭhasīsa and his slightly unconventional practice, questioned by others.
Right, which became a springboard for the Buddha.
Not just about food storage, but about this much bigger principle. Letting go of accumulation, both the tangible stuff and the intangible karmic weight.
And developing a truly mindful, detached relationship with our basic needs, like food. Understanding it deeply.
All pointing towards this ultimate goal, nibbana. Liberation. That state of being empty, signless, untraceable.
Beautifully summarized. And it connects back to that listener's interest in getting knowledge efficiently, doesn't it? This ancient story packs so much core teaching into a single narrative.
It really does. Timeless wisdom about attachment, freedom,
Mm-hmm.
things we all grapple with, regardless of belief systems.
Absolutely. The principles have broad relevance.
It certainly leaves you thinking about our own lives, maybe. The
Yeah.
ways we accumulate. It's often subtle, isn't it? Not just the clutter in our houses.
Yeah. Accumulating expectations, identities, grievances.
Exactly. And what would it mean to have a well-understood relationship with our needs, our emotional needs, our material needs? Could that lead to a less traceable path, a lighter way of being?
That's the provocative question, isn't it? Beyond just physical things, what does accumulation mean for you personally?
Definitely something to chew on. A great place to pause this deep dive.
Indeed. Lots to reflect on there.